You know how you get those notifications on your phone, like software update available, and you ignore it for a while?
Oh, yeah, always.
Right. But eventually, I mean, the hardware just gets too old. Like, no software update can save it. It slows down, it crashes,
Hmm.
and it inevitably just becomes obsolete.
Right, yeah. Planned obsolescence.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of accept it as a fundamental law of technology. You can't run the latest apps on a, a 10-year-old phone. And really, I mean, we accept it as a law of biology, too. Things wear out, joints degrade, speed fades.
Exactly. But okay, imagine an operating system that just refuses to become obsolete.
Okay.
One that somehow keeps like patching its own bugs, upgrading its own hardware, and
Yeah.
outperforming the newest, flashiest models on the market year after year after year.
That's a wild thought.
Right.
Yeah.
But today's deep dive is into exactly that kind of machine. We have this massive stack of sources today: sports journalism, historical retrospectives, Wikipedia records, and even financial reports. And our mission: we are unpacking the anatomy of an absolute icon. We're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo.
And look, we are not just going to read off a list of football scores or trophy counts today. That's not the point.
No, definitely not.
The goal here is to really reverse engineer him. We want to understand the psychological, the physical, and the commercial machinery that turn a kid from a tiny Atlantic island into just this global phenomenon.
Right. So whether you're a diehard sports fan or just someone who is, insanely curious about peak human performance and how to actually manufacture excellence, there are massive takeaways here for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because to understand the billionaire athlete we see today, we have to start by looking at the raw, highly emotional hardware of a kid in Madeira.
Which is, I mean, it's a completely fascinating starting point. You have to go back to 1985, right? To a really poor neighborhood in Funchal on the Portuguese island of Madeira.
Right.
And he was actually an unplanned child. His parents named him Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro. And the Ronaldo part, this is crazy, it was chosen because they were huge fans of the U.S. president at the time, Ronald Reagan.
Wait, really? Ronald Reagan?
Yeah. It's one of those wild butterfly effect details.
I had no idea about that. And his family was like deeply embedded in the local football scene too, right?
Yeah, his father, Dinas, was actually a kit man for the local club, Andardinha. So Ronaldo was literally growing up surrounded by the smell of the grass, the mud, the equipment. He was just constantly there with a ball.
Right, and the sources mention this incredible story about his godfather, Fernão Barros Sousa. Fernão was a player at the club, and he actually arrived so late to Ronaldo's baptism that the priest almost canceled the entire thing.
Right, yeah. It just perfectly sets the scene of this chaotic, completely football-obsessed environment. But what really stands out from those early days in Madeira are his childhood nicknames.
Oh, these are great.
Around the pitch, they called him Abelinha, which translates to Little Bee.
Because he was tiny, incredibly fast, and just, buzzed all over the field relentlessly.
Exactly. But his other nickname is the one that really gives us the first real look at his underlying psychology. They called him Crybaby.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you hear crybaby,
Yeah.
you immediately think fragile, right? You think of a kid who just gives up when things get hard.
Yeah, totally.
But that wasn't it at all. The records show he would literally cry when his team was losing, or even if his teammates were just fighting amongst themselves and not passing the ball.
Right. It wasn't fragility at all. It was this incredibly raw, just unrefined will to win. The crying wasn't about giving up. It was the physical manifestation of an emotional overload.
Wow.
He simply could not compute losing. When the reality of match didn't meet his impossibly high internal standard, the emotion had nowhere else to go but out through tears.
And that raw emotion, it gets put through the ultimate pressure cooker when he moves to Sporting CP in Lisbon.
Yeah.
And he was just 12 years old.
Right. Just a kid.
Think about that. He leaves his island, moves to the mainland, and he was teased mercilessly by the other academy kids for his heavy island accent. It got so bad he actually temporarily returned home to Madeira.
Which, if you think about it, is a critical inflection point in the operating system's development.
Right.
He easily could have stayed home. A lot of talented kids do. But he was convinced to return, and those early struggles with bullying and profound homesickness, they essentially laid the psychological foundation for his legendary work ethic.
So he turns it into fuel.
Exactly. Former teammate Paulo Sergio noted that by the time Ronaldo was 15, his extraordinary mindset was just fully formed. To compensate for feeling out of place, he turned to obsessive self-improvement. He was the kid staying an extra half hour after training, completely by himself, just to perfect whatever tiny flaw he felt he had that day.
So he builds this armor of hard work. But here's where it gets really interesting. Fast forward to 2003. He impresses in a friendly against Manchester United, immediately transfers there, and suddenly, this emotional, highly driven teenager is face-to-face with manager Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, talk about a clash of worlds. Seriously. And Ferguson takes this tough love approach to the absolute extreme. The retrospective sources tell this story. Following a poor showing against Benfica, Ferguson absolutely laid into him in the dressing room. He was shouting, "Who do you think you are? You're coming in here trying to prove you're a superstar." And he actually made Ronaldo cry in front of the entire team.
Yeah, it's a famous story.
But I have to push back on this narrative a bit. Does making a teenager cry in front of his peers actually build resilience? Or is that just, I don't know, a toxic management style we used to glorify?
I mean, it's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And in most cases, you're right, it's totally destructive. For a lot of players, that kind of public dressing down just shatters their confidence permanently.
Right.
But remember that unrefined, explosive will to win we just talked about.
The little b.
Exactly. Ferguson recognized that the little B had all the drive in the world, but he completely lacked discipline. He was trying to do too much, trying to be the flashy superstar rather than serving the team's tactical plan. So it was the exact, highly specific medicine this particular kid needed.
Precisely. Making him cry wasn't about breaking his spirit. It was about recalibrating his focus. Ferguson used that intense, really uncomfortable friction to forge Ronaldo's raw emotion into a laser-like discipline.
And that mental forge directly drives his physical evolution. He takes that discipline and starts literally engineering his own body.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at his physical metrics from that era, they are staggering.
Oh, they're not even human.
We are talking about an athlete maintaining sub 7% body fat and possessing a recorded vertical leap of 2.93 meters.
Yeah, and just to put that 2.93-meter leap in perspective for you, that is higher than a standard basketball rim. It's actually higher than the ceiling in an average home.
Wait, just to visualize that means at the apex of his jump, his head is literally looking down at the crossbar of a football goal.
Exactly.
How was a human knee joint surviving that landing on grass without just snapping in half?
That's where the obsessive engineering comes in. The biomechanics required to propel a human body that high, while running on an uneven surface, it requires a level of fast-twitch muscle conditioning that is almost superhuman. But you're right, it's the landing that destroys careers.
Yeah.
So he had to build incredible eccentric strength in his quadriceps and hamstrings, meaning the muscle's ability to lengthen under tension just to act as shock absorbers, so his patellar tendons wouldn't rupture when he came back down to earth.
Wow. Which, perfectly transitions into his tactical evolution.
Yeah.
Because he didn't just physically change. He completely reprogrammed how he played the game. Go back to our software metaphor. He basically realized the flashy winner program was draining his battery too fast.
Right.
So he uninstalls it, and he writes a completely new script, the penalty box striker. It's like a Swiss Army knife transforming into a laser-guided scalpel.
That is exactly how you have to look at it. Because look, you can't be a flashy winger forever. Wingers take brutal physical punishment.
Yeah.
They're sprinting 60 yards up and down the flank, getting hacked down by defenders.
It's his constant wear and tear.
Exactly. To preserve his hardware, he adapted. By moving centrally and becoming a striker, he conserved his energy for the highest probability moments. He stripped away all the unnecessary stepovers for just pure, ruthless efficiency.
Less running, higher conversion rate. And the output at Real Madrid, post that 80 million pound transfer, reflects that perfectly calculated efficiency. Honestly, the Real Madrid numbers, they look like typos.
They really do.
450 goals in 438 games.
They're just unbelievable.
That is a 1.03 goal-to-game ratio across 438 games, 311 La Liga goals, 105 Champions League goals for Real Madrid alone. And get this, in the 2014-2015 season, he scored 61 goals across all competitions. That is literal video game stuff.
It is. But what's really important for us to extract here is how he sustained it, right? He didn't just wake up scoring 61 goals. He engineered a routine that made it an inevitability. Ronaldo was really one of the very first to introduce a culture of marginal gains to mainstream football.
Let's clarify that for anyone listening who maybe isn't a sports scientist. When we say marginal gains, we're talking about the philosophy of finding a 1% improvement in every tiny thing you do, right? Your diet, your sleep cycles, how you recover.
Exactly. It's the compounding interest of self-improvement. He heavily invested in advanced, really personalized diets long before it was a norm. He slept in specific 90-minute cycles rather than 8-hour blocks to optimize recovery. He even installed a cryotherapy chamber in his own home.
Because, what, standing in sub-zero temperatures flushes the lactic acid out of your muscles faster.
Right. The extreme cold causes intense vasoconstriction, so your blood vessels shrink, sending all the blood to your core to protect your organs. Then, when you step out, that blood, which is now heavily enriched with oxygen, rushes back out to your muscles, drastically accelerating the healing process.
That's intense.
It is. But because of this, he forced modern managers to completely rethink player longevity. Today, youth development academies worldwide literally use his physical and tactical evolution as the foundational blueprint for training the next generation.
Think about that in your own life, right? Are you investing in your own version of marginal games, or are you just doing the bare minimum that everyone else in your office does? Because the difference is astronomical over a decade.
Oh, for sure.
But that brings us to a really fascinating pivot, because you cannot run this kind of hyper-optimized operating system purely on a grass pitch. The sheer momentum of it has to spill over. And Ronaldo completely rewired the commercial role of an athlete off the pitch.
Right. I mean, he built a billion-dollar empire. We're looking at a brand with over 600 million social media followers, a lifetime deal with Nike that's reportedly worth $1 billion, and this massive physical footprint of CR7 branded hotels, underwear lines, and fitness centers globally.
But right alongside the luxury hotels and the billionaire status is this unprecedented level of philanthropy. And I think people forget this. In 2015, he was actually named the most charitable sports star in the world.
Yeah, the specifics are wild.
They really are. He auctioned off his European Golden Boot for £1.2 million just to build schools in Gaza. He optioned his 2013 Ballon d'Or for £530,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Wow.
He regularly donates his massive Champions League bonuses, and we're talking £450,000 in 2014, €600,000 in 2016, just straight to charity. He paid £55,000 for brain surgery for a 10-month-old boy, and £120,000 to the cancer center in Madeira that treated his mother.
And that's on top of regular massive donations from his income, which, by the way, was around 95 million euros a year back in 2019, to organizations like Save the Children, UNICEF, and the Red Cross.
So, okay, I have to ask. With the private jets, the sports cars, the incredibly flashy Instagram lifestyle, do you think the narrative of the arrogant superstar completely blinds the general public to the actual tangible good he does in the world? Like, we just see the ego and we miss the charity.
Well, this dives into the psychology of how we perceive public figures, and it's a brilliant paradox. We tend to want our heroes to fit into neat little boxes, you know? You're either the humble, quiet saint, or you're the arrogant, selfish billionaire. But Ronaldo forces us to accept that you can be both, because they are actually powered by the exact same source.
Wait, explain that. How is the arrogance powering the charity?
Well, think about the ego battery required to be him. You need supreme, almost borderline delusional narcissism to genuinely believe you are the greatest player on earth and to demand the ball to score your 61st goal of the season.
Yeah, it's true.
And it takes an incredible ego to auction off your Ballon d'Or, your most prized possession, the ultimate symbol of individual validation. But you need that exact same massive ego to look at a global crisis and think, I can single-handedly fund a hospital wing to fix this. The supreme self-belief on the pitch is the engine that generates the wealth and the willpower he uses to build schools and fund surgeries.
Ah, I see. It's the exact same operating system, just running different applications.
Precisely. He views his wealth and his global influence as tools to execute his will off the pitch, just as he uses his fast twitch muscles as a tool on it. The arrogance and the philanthropy, they aren't contradictory. They are deeply symbiotic.
Which brings us to an incredible realization. So, he has the billion-dollar brand. He has the unassailable records. He has the philanthropic legacy secured. By any normal human metric, the software has achieved its ultimate form. There is quite literally nothing left to prove.
Nothing.
And yet, if we look at the 2025-2026 Saudi Pro League season, he is 41 years old, and he is still playing in the Middle East Heat. Why?
Because that little B from Madeira, the kid they called Crybaby, he still cannot compute losing.
And the numbers from this Saudi Pro League season, they are just staggering.
Yeah.
Al Nassr wins the title dominantly with 86 points. It's 28 wins, 4 draws, and only 2 defeats all season.
Yeah.
And on the final day, they deliver a 4-1 demolition of Damak. They held 62.2% possession and outshot them 14-3. They had already won the lead mathematically, but they absolutely refused to take their foot off the gas.
And that is entirely down to the culture he enforces in that dressing room. But what's really fascinating is the tactical mechanics of how a 41-year-old does this.
Right, because you can't outrun time completely.
Exactly. The manager, Luis Castro, he realized you cannot ask a 41-year-old to do the high-intensity defensive pressing of a 20-year-old without his muscles just breaking down. So Castro engineered a highly specific system that completely exempts Ronaldo from the defensive press.
Meaning, the other 10 players on the pitch have to be drilled to run extra, covering his defensive deficit, so he can stockpile 100% of his physical battery for short, explosive sprints inside the penalty box.
Exactly. It requires massive psychological buy-in from the rest of the team to do the dirty work for him, but they do it because it guarantees goals. And Ronaldo, he summed it up perfectly after that match. He said, "People said I came here to retire. I came here to win. This is what winning looks like."
I just marvel at that.
Yeah.
At 41, playing with that intensity, is he just desperately trying to prove a point to the critics who said he was washed up when he left Europe? Or is he genuinely, physically addicted to the mechanics of winning?
I'd argue it's an addiction to the mechanics of optimization. He has spent his entire life proving that biological aging is malleable if your discipline is absolute. By staying on the pitch at 41, he's fundamentally shifting the geography of global football.
Right, bringing all those eyes to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, his presence there is the ultimate proof of concept for the Saudi Pro League. Critics called it a retirement community, but his relentless output has forced the world to pay attention. I mean, global TV ratings for the league have surged, and youth academies in the kingdom are seeing just unprecedented enrollment.
It's an incredible through line when you step back and look at it. We've traced this path from a kid crying in the dirt in Madeira because his team lost a pickup game, through the incredibly demanding, tear-inducing fires of Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. We watched him literally rewrite his own biomechanics to become a hyper-efficient goal-scoring machine in Madrid. And now, a 41-year-old pioneer reshaping a global league and leveraging a